our keynote, it is time for our first panel discussion, Bitcoin East and West. Now I'm pleased to introduce our panelist, Herbert, Asia GM of Definity Foundation. Welcome, Herbert. Matt Yi, CEO of Lorenzo Protocol. Matt. Hi. And Duchess Smith, marketing lead of Citrea. And this panel is moderated by Nicole New, founding partner of Common Free Ventures. Welcome. And we will have 5 minutes Q&A session following each discussion, so please feel free to raise up your hand if you have any question for the panel. So now I pass the mic to Nicole.
Hello. Yeah. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining, and thanks for having such top-tier Bitcoin builders and we discuss today's panel, Bitcoin East and West. So I'm glad to introduce Coma Trade Ventures. Actually, Coma Trade Ventures, which is a quite new branded VC firm, just invest crypto since last year. But most of team members start invest crypto since 2017, 2016. So as everybody is doing here, actually we are quite bullish on BTC ecosystem since last year. So far, actually we have invested over 15 projects in BTC ecosystem already. So mostly across all the building blocks. So like layer 2's wallets, oracles, liquidity protocols, and lots of DeFi projects like perp, DEX. So we are quite bullish on the BTC ecosystem. So we are still very active to deploy lots of BTC projects and leverage our network and some value add, including the TVL, Bootstrap, and KOL network to help our portfolios to be stronger in BTC ecosystem. Yeah. So before we dive in our panel discussion today, I would like to invite our panelists to introduce you guys and tell us more about your fantastic crypto journey so far. Yeah, Matt, would you?
Yeah, sure, I can start first. So I'm Matt, I'm the founder and the CEO of Lorenzo Protocol. So we identify ourselves as the Bitcoin liquidity finance layer. So it does a few things. So first of all, it matches the supply and demand for BTC liquidity. So on the one side, you have all these like amazing Bitcoin L2s and Bitcoin kind of yield products on the one side, and also you have like a crazy amount of BTC capitals on the other side. So we are the platform for matching these two sides where to invest your BTC liquidity wisely. This is one thing. And also another thing is like we tokenize BTC liquidity being staked to and also the yield, right? So, and based on these token standards that you can build a more complex like liquidity-fi or yield-fi products on top of these like tokens. So that's pretty much like what we do, yeah.
Hi, this is Tuche. I lead marketing and communication efforts at Citrea. At Citrea, we're building ZK Rollup. Our vision is ultimately to make Bitcoin foundation for world's finance. So we really care about Bitcoin, its decentralization, censorship resistance, reorg resistance. So we believe that to inherit all of these, you have to scale Bitcoin block space. So what we do, we scale Bitcoin block space with zero-knowledge proofs so that your transactions are anchored, live on Bitcoin, and we use Bitcoin as our native token. So ultimately, we want to scale Bitcoin's throughput, offer more expressivity and features, programmability, and have a DeFi world of finance anchored on Bitcoin.
Hello, thank you for the invite. My name is Herbert. I'm the general manager of Asia for Definity Foundation. So Definity Foundation, We are one of the ancient foundations in crypto, founded in Zurich, Switzerland in 2016. We launched the ICP, Internet Computer Protocol mainnet, 3 years ago, actually just yesterday, 3 years ago. That was a 3-year anniversary of ICP. So I saw a lot of familiar faces of ICP friends and developers. ICP is a general purpose blockchain. Our candidates of smart contract, among many things, can deploy and host the front end of all the web services. So that makes ICP a very interesting choice, very versatile and powerful platform for a lot of Bitcoin, not only Bitcoin, but also Ethereum developers to build their solutions with a decentralized infrastructure for BTC and other chains. So that's what brings us to Hong Kong this week, and obviously Asia is mission critical for the growth of ecosystem of ICP. We have a global fund of $200 million developer grants. That's why we want to invite all the developers to try out the open source SDK from ICP to see what we can do.
Cool. Yeah, thanks for your introduction, and nice to you guys today. Actually, I have prepared 3 very tough and sharp questions, almost covering the most hottest topic and what happened in Bitcoin ecosystem. So the first question is regarding to the community fragmented. So because recently, as everybody knows, there are lots of layer 2s and Bitcoin projects. Actually, they have lots of backers, strong backers from Asia or strong backer from Western, right? So my question is, how do you guys perceive this situation? And from your experience, right, as builders, how do you guys collaborate, global Bitcoin communities to work together to solve such fragmented situation and bootstrap the massive adoptions in BTC ecosystem? A little bit tough, but we need to solve.
So I can start first. So basically, I think the compositions of people in the projects, like in US, for example, in Western, basically, and also in the Eastern side of the world, are kind of different. So for Eastern, so basically, specifically in China and also in Singapore, Hong Kong, Korea, Japan. So basically, there are a pretty, let's say, an echo chamber. So these Asian communities in terms of marketing. This is one thing. And also there are a lot of kind of good dev teams and good engineers, say in China, Shenzhen, Hong Kong, Singapore as well. While on the other side, on the Western world, I think there are more big funds, Signal funds, and also there are very good researchers on the other side as well. There are some other separate marketing of the world. So a lot of gaps I see in between is that how do we get the different compositions of the resources together, right? So there are a few different gaps. I think one important thing would probably, people don't say it, but I think language is probably one problem. The communication is going to be so easy between people speaking different languages. This is one thing, and also the marketing, the awareness of the brands, right? If your brand is only spread it out in some different communities, it's nowhere for you to get some other audience to even know about you. So, and also 3 is the trust kind of the gaps here is that for other people, you probably didn't even know, before you try to work together, there's actually no trust base, a lot of things like that. So we as the liquidity distribution or liquidity finance layer, so we want to kind of even tackle some of these problems I just mentioned. So for connecting liquidity is essentially connecting capitals to the projects, and eventually all these are all people behind it. So we want to be a platform to connect all the capitals to these projects. This is one thing. And also we as a platform, we also provide kind of credibilities and also trust and also background checks for these capitals and projects to be working with us. So we are trying to be becoming the middle layers for all of the different communities to be working together. Yeah.
Decentralization is not only important for blockchain. Community decentralization is really important for, I think, for any project, right? There's definitely cultural differences, when you look at West and East, but Bitcoin doesn't have a country, doesn't have a culture, or it has philosophy and ethos. But you can definitely tell Bitcoin is very important in this region. You have a lot of miners securing the network. You have a lot of users here, a lot of engineer, developer potential here. I don't think you need to kind of have this global one community. I really respect every community is its own culture, the way they do things, that's fine. I think here the responsibility is on the project, coming to local communities, connect. There's definitely a language barrier, but you don't have to teach them English. You can have that community, local community running, explaining your project in the local language. That's why we were really excited to come here. We want to be a lot more present in Asian community. We want to have local representatives talking about Citrea. You don't have to have one big community. You have to have decentralized community, like you have to have decentralized blockchain. We will like to connect more with local people. We will come more often here to this region. It's very nice. And we would love to also meet more engineers. I think that's how I see it. Fragmentation for liquidity is not maybe good, but for community is not that bad. You have to, it's fine to have different communities, different languages talking about you and globally in different manners. That's why we were really excited to be here, and it was really, really nice, good last 3-4 days, connecting with local people. We got a bunch of good connections. I'm excited what's ahead for Citrea in the region.
Yeah, I think this is a great question and a tough one to solve. So thank you, Nicole, for that question. I think yesterday at Bitcoin Asia Day 2, I thought that was a bit of a symbolic moment where on stage you have KC and Domo, creators of Ruins Audio on BRC, and also Lorenzo, the founder of Unisat, on stage on the same panel. I mean, boy, that was, I would say that it's easily the highlight of this whole week. But it's very symbolic because, what is the message there? The West sets the narrative, creates standard. The East creates application, and then goes for mass adoption. I think this is a pattern that we have seen over and over again in this industry, including Internet Computer Protocol. In the last 3 years, since we began growing our ecosystem after launching the mainnet, couple of things and challenges have emerged. Like for one, I very much agree with what Matt just said. Language is a massive problem. I think this challenge can never be overstated. It's a major showstopper, especially for a lot of teams, who want to connect with a global audience. So that's number one. Number two, beyond just language, it's the cultural difference. For example, I think a lot of Asian teams, because in Definite Foundation, as we work with thousands of developers around the world to interview them, give them developer grants and etc. I mean, this contrast is very clear. A lot of developers in the East or Asia, they want to do certain things first, and with an expectation that since I've done so much for you, I will expect something back in return. But in the West, a lot of the developers in America or Europe, they do the opposite way. They will negotiate with the foundation, with Definite Foundation. Okay, I know you have a lot of resources, so let's negotiate. I will do this for you. How about you give me that? They will negotiate a very good terms for themselves sometimes, by our measure, and then they go there do their things. So, this problem creates a scenario because a lot of the developers or communities in the East, they feel that they have not been treated well by the foundation, because they assume something's going to come back in the end, but it rarely does. So I think that is more than language. It's a bit of a cultural sort of the way of doing things, right? We don't at a very deep level, the way we earn trust, the way we negotiate, the way we bond is just very different. And the other thing is which is a major optics. Just as I said earlier, the developers or communities in the West, they're very good at creating narratives, providing the voice in the community, and in some way they play a larger than then in an oversized role in shaping and influencing the direction of the ecosystem growth. But a lot of communities and also developers in the East are just not very good at doing that. they build the applications, and then at the end they feel that their voice is not being heard because there is no voice in the beginning. So there's I think these are the major three issues we have seen in the last couple of years. But then how I think as Mason, as a foundation, how we can be the middleman to facilitate that, to mitigate that challenges, a couple of things. I think Hong Kong is actually great to do this. That's why, that's what brought us here. We had a booth, we had a little booth a few days ago at a Bitcoin DevCon ICP booth. And last month, we were one of the major title sponsors for Web3 Festival. And Hong Kong, of the location, because of the language, is a great melting pot, for all the West and the East developers and communities. I don't think too many cities really fit this bill, but Hong Kong has a huge advantage. Number two is just we, in Divinity at least, we create global events and invite communities and developers to participate. For example, yesterday we had this marathon online event to celebrate the 3-year anniversary of launching the ICP mainnet. We wanted to turn that into a global event, let all the developers feel they're part of something greater than just themselves. And then, regularly our R&D team in Divinity Foundation, we invite developers, especially now increasingly developers from the East, to participate in our weekly open, it's an open public conference calls, to invite them to do demos and all that. So we want them to bring that exposure to the communities in Europe and America. But that's only a small step toward a much, much greater challenge. But I think our work has been cut out. But it's a good start. But it's a very, very tough challenge, I'll say.
Yeah, good saying, Harbor. Yeah, you just mentioned lots of time for challenge. I also wonder into what kind of challenge for developers you have met before, right? So could you bring you guys to share with me the most toughest experience you have met before, and what kind of lessons you have learned? Maybe you can give some advice to our builders and avoid the pitfalls. Yeah, Hubert.
We'll take turns. I'll start. So I think the number one, a couple, maybe three. So the biggest challenge for a lot of teams, let's just get this, this is the low-hanging fruit. Not low-hanging fruit, but this is the most obvious one. We need to build an international team. A lot of teams in the, they are, the typical setup is a 5 to 10 developer, 5 to 10, mostly developers, mostly guys. And I always suggest them, you need to consider building a more international team from the get-go. Someone that can galvanize for you, speaking to the investors, etc., market makers, exchanges outside of China, outside of Asia. So that is, I think, number one, to build an international team. Somebody needs to go to all those conferences to represent you, to make connection with, to make new friends at those events. I think among all the teams, and Youku team does a very good job. Youku is the top metaverse and NFT marketplace in the ICP ecosystem. So they have, so Anna, head of BD, she's not here in Hong Kong anymore, but she was making the rounds in the last couple of days. So that is having a very international team from the get-go. Number two is, this might sound counterintuitive. Do not rely too much on the foundation. I come across a lot of new developers. Hey, oh, you're from Divinity Foundation. Can we collaborate? Can we enter into some partnership? Well, to be honest, we are a non-profit foundation trying to advance an open source technology. We have supreme confidence in the technology we have created, and we are still developing, but we are not particularly known for doing other things. So really, you are on your own. You got to figure out how to, don't just rely your funding source from the grants or the subsidy from the foundation. Try to figure out how you can make money from your customers. That's really number one. So, and also just in terms of marketing and all that, I just be honest with you, don't want to be the one to break the news, but there's a limited mileage, how far they can carry you. Really, you have to be able to make sure you can stand on your own. So that's number two. And then the last but not the least is just not only for Bitcoin developers, just in general, I think for crypto, we are facing a bit of a major problem, that is we still have not found the iPhone 4 moment for the entire industry. Not just for ICP, not just for Bitcoin layer 2, but for the entire crypto. I mean, it's a very small tribe. I came from Amazon Web Services before joining Definity Foundation. This is a tiny drop in the ocean comparing to what we know as internet. This is a very, very small, tiny tribe. I mean, we're getting high and all that, but that's really nothing compared to, a much bigger world out there. So we haven't found the moment. Why? That's because we have not found, at least in ICP, we have not found the product market fit, that killer application moment yet. Unlike the digital gold for Bitcoin, unlike the ERC20 for Ethereum. So I think the challenge is still out there, and we are relying on all the developers to find their own product market fit, to figure out, who are the users that will like your products. And in the building products, technology, this is the easy piece. Definity Foundation has done the heavy lifting for you guys. We have some of the best cryptographers in the world. People like Jan Kamenesh, Jan Gross, and Ben Lin, and Andres Roseberg, the creator of WebAssembly, etc. But the challenge is really, and the job is upon you guys to figure out, where is your product market fit? Who are the users who are willing to pay for your services? That is a question I think has not received enough attention across the board. We all assume, all right, the Bitcoin layer 2, let's just fill in the blank because Ethereum has all this, so let's do the same for Bitcoin. The larger question is, who are going to use those services? I mean, the same crowd from Ethereum from the last 5 years, it's a small tribe. So I think that's, that's among other things. These are the three just suggestions or advice, if any, I always share with our developers.
Yeah, so
I'm not a developer, so I can answer this question from a different perspective, maybe. So at Citrea, we really care about explaining ourselves as accurately, as honestly as possible. We really care about responsible, knowledgeable, critical users. So when you take on that role, and that's your vision, you start questioning terminologies that you define yourself. You start saying, what is a layer 2 technically? How would you define yourself? You want to represent yourself accurately and explain the public and users your trade-offs, what it means to be an L2. Are we an L2? How do you really define all of that? When you look from that perspective, from communication part, we think a lot about what we write and how we represent ourselves. So it's really important to educate people, so that they go check out the GitHub page, go check the code, critique the technology, critique us. Just make sure that you know your risks and trade-offs when you use a protocol. So that's kind of a long-term, relentless pursuit that you have to do it over and over again, explain yourself, create great content, and you just hope that there's no mistake there, but always critique so we can revise. So it's really challenging, to do that, coming from 0 to 1 and explain yourself well so that you're known. I guess overall that's kind of my take, because it's really hard for users to separate noise from the tech, right? You have so many projects, so many claims. Everybody claims to be something. That's cool. Okay, but how do you actually, verify that? How do you understand that's the real tech, really good technology that you should try it out? So to a point, we take that responsibility at Citrea and critique ourselves and try to explain the trade-offs. There are different people in Bitcoin community trying to also do that, community initiatives around educative materials. So I really respect that. It's challenging, but it's very important for us.
Yeah, I think there are like two main things on my mind. So one is that if you see if you want to, Bitcoin is like a huge market, and there are like a number of like different players from different regions and having different backgrounds, like has to be playing in the same game, and different people like having different like expectations, and they have their own like concerns, but you need to find the common denominators to have everybody to be joining in. So for example, from the Western signal part, right? So maybe a lot of these capitals or like even a lot of these like founders are looking for perfect narratives, new creation, cool technologies. Some of them are even very experimental. So only maybe in a few years you could tell whether it's a cool technology or just something that doesn't work. And it's also like even harder for you to promise like how much yield you can provide with this specific kind of speculative technologies. It's probably gonna kick off in a few months or years. So while on the other side of the world, so for a lot of like huge Bitcoin whales, Bitcoin holders, so they're looking for kind of in like predictable yield. So they want to have like a reasonable yield, and also at the same time, they're like particularly cautious about their asset securities, because like probably like all of their allocations of assets are pretty much in a Bitcoin, and that's kind of billions of US dollars worth of assets. There's like zero risk tolerance on the like capital safeties there. So, and also on the third part is that the technology of Bitcoin is very limited, and also the progression of the Bitcoin core dev is kind of progressing very, very hard. And also the Bitcoin core developers are almost impossible to find on the market as well. So they're like a very exclusive, like small communities out there. So that makes things like even harder. So how do we get these like three parties to be working together and also find the common denominators? Probably like you're not gonna have, definitely not gonna have everyone to be joining immediately, but how do you have like a step-by-step approach to starting from some of them and improving like the narratives, improving like the securities and technologies, improving the capitals to be involved in this whole thing, and keeping everybody happy and keep this business from growing to find the common denominators is kind of the one biggest challenge we're facing now. So that's why we're more focusing on like liquidity side and also supporting everyone to like, reduce the threshold and the frictions for everybody to be joining into the same game. So this is one thing. Also on the other side is about like what is the standards? So how to set up the standards and who to set up the standards. So things like that. So the reason why we're seeing so many L2s of today, while there's actually not so many, I think, strong demand for L2s in Ethereum, is because basically you can build everything on Ethereum already with all these smart contracts. So in a way, Ethereum is competing with its own L2s in terms of projects and tractions and capitals and things like that. Well, for Bitcoin, the infrastructure, like the programmability is actually pretty bad on Bitcoin itself. So Bitcoin needs L2 to like scale itself and to provide more functionalities and programmabilities. But also that means all of these L2s, as long as you want to build like a consolidated market for all the capitals and also products, protocols, you have to have these L2s be talking to each other. Because like today we see a lot of dApps as an L2, or we see like Babylon protocols as an L2, and also ourselves protocols as an L2. I mean, it's a must. You must have the infrastructures. You must have like these protocols landing on these infrastructures as well. But also you need, at some point, you need to have like the standards, so it's easier for them to be talking to each other, so they becomes like a product of the universe. So what's the standards going to be for that? What's kind of like leading the way? What's kind of the first kind of primitives or principles for you to design a system like that? That's kind of still debatable. Everybody want to, promote their own standards. That's also another thing like we're facing, I think, today.
Yeah, thanks. Maybe last question for the market sentiment, because recently actually for Bitcoin ecosystem seems like has a cool down a little bit recently. So may I know what's the reason for you guys? I mean, for the market has cooled down, right? What's the reason you guys are thinking? And the second question is regarding to the market, also the market. So what kind of new narrative or promising narrative you guys are bullish on? Yeah, and tell us why. Yeah, Laurel, you met.
Yeah, I can start first. So I feel like marketing is just one thing. It's about exposures. It's about like, people does not memory like things for a very long time, right? So they're having a lot of new things happening, which like fighting for your attentions, especially today, like we have like so much like crowded social media. Everybody is trying to come up with something smart to take your attention. So, I mean, like there are less kind of epic moments for Bitcoin like this month or probably in a few months like later. It's just like natural because like you don't expect like epic things, epic moments happening like always, right? So, but it's also like a short-term thing. Like marketing is important, but like heavily marketing on just one specific thing is not going to take your projects or take the industry that far, right? So we shouldn't be like overestimated on the short-term marketing too much while like underestimating the long-term values and the long-term growth of the whole industry. So I think it's fine and it's fair. It's like only natural people, like there's like a circulation of attention into like different sectors of the market or even different sectors of the general technology or financial world. It's like only natural these things are happening. This is like one thing, but also on the long run, it's not really gonna affect that much. So people are still bullishing on Bitcoin and the people are still having like building this consensus while more people doesn't even know about Bitcoin start to understand what this thing is and understanding its value and starting to be curious about what's the next steps for the whole industry and for the Bitcoin networks to be growing. So this is still like a good thing I'm seeing. So this is not really a problem. But one thing I think would be the long-term approach there is like Bitcoin has been like a pretty good digital gold already, right? But hasn't been so great as a currency, right? If you're thinking about like how efficient a currency market is, Bitcoin is nowhere close to say US dollars, right? So US dollars, for example, has like a very efficient money market. So given like it has 2.4 trillion for US dollar like supplies, but there are like 50 kind of trillion-ish for treasury bonds and corporation bonds. Like US dollars is a very efficiently being used currency in almost like everywhere and in every industries. While BTC doesn't even like remotely having close existence in like, you know, adoptions other than pretty much like trading, or even like in trading, it's not really like the one single like golden standards for all the trading pairs out there. So there's still like a long way to go for like adopting BTC as in currencies. I'm not just like using that for trading, using that for hedging, that's like for one thing, but also using BTC capitals to fuel a lot of business to growth, to fuel a lot of like even governments for their like governmental spendings and their like, fiscal like plannings. I mean, there are like a long way to go for BTC really to become the currencies. And we are trying to solve this problem on our side, and there are a lot of other like projects trying to solve this problem on their side. So we should be kind of working together and get this moment to be coming like sooner. Yeah.
I'll answer from the narrative perspective. So I think ecosystems are important here. You see narratives working really, really well in different ecosystems, even though there's no product yet. Right? They're not building anything on it, but just narrative really gets people hyped and going in a lot of the ecosystems. But what I like about Bitcoin community and Bitcoiners is that they're not gonna fall for that. There are a lot of Bitcoiners out there. They're not gonna fall for your narrative unless you're supporting with real tech. So kind of, it's important who your audience is here with narrative. I guess that's kind of my takeaway from all the situation. We really care for Bitcoin community, Bitcoiners. We love that they are very critical users overall. So it's just narrative on its own is not going to do anything for you, especially in this community. You have to back it up with your real tech and explain the value you're bringing to Bitcoin. And I think that's kind of what makes Bitcoin community better than other ecosystems.
Yeah, I think given the history of ICP, I will skip the first part of the question, and because we really have no idea how the market is gonna goes ups and downs. But I think the second part is really interesting. I think the Infinity Foundation for ICP, our mission is blockchain singularity, where we believe the majority of mankind's web services eventually will and shall be deployed and running on blockchain. The only way toward ultimate decentralization. The only way, and decentralization leads to data sovereignty, leads to what we call Web3. So we have laid out a 20-year roadmap toward that. So all these, we call that trends and all the buzzwords, whether it was the Ethereum roll-up as a service or Bitcoin layer 2, decentralized artificial intelligence, they come and go. But to us, all these fall into this grand vision that we have, which our founder and chief scientist, Dominic Williams, laid out in his 67-minute medium super long article, I think on January 8, 2021, 5 months before launching the mainnet. So we believe that. We believe that eventually, all these services will be running on blockchain. That's why we created this canister smart contract that uses a asynchronous communication method to solve the horizontal scaling issue, which, if you guys are into development, that is something that will forever constrain the growth of Ethereum and all the sort of the Ethereum killers. So on ICP Canister smart contract, you can build websites, games, metaverse, and the next Xiaohongshu or the e-commerce, Amazon.com, what have you. That is already happening across many different vertical industries, including. But, and this is something that's really interesting for the crowd here, you can build an indexer. You can build an indexer of all the Bitcoins on our Canister smart contract. Because if you can think about what is the single source of truth of all the ruins and ordinals and all the BRC20, ARC20 tokens, they exist on indexers. And where are those indexers? Don't tell me they run on centralized cloud computing platforms such as Google or Amazon Web Services or Azure. That is just not Web3. But you can do that on an ICP. I mean, relatively speaking, we're not going to say this is definitive, the most, the ultimate form of decentralization, but I'm pretty confident to tell you that it is more decentralized than any other technology stack that we have seen. I came from Amazon Web Services. It's pretty easy for SEC to shut down the entire Ethereum if they really want to, because 70% of the validators run on AWS. I mean, the same obviously goes for Bitcoin ecosystem. So for one, that is one thing you can do, and for two, as Mem mentioned, there's previously, a year ago, before a year ago when this whole thing came about, there was no smart contract capability on Bitcoin. That is no longer the case because, among other our peers in ICP, we have brought in smart contract capability to Bitcoin. Now you can write smart contract on ICP that can control and initiate a transaction that can be signed and recognized by the Bitcoin mainnet. We just a month ago we released a Schnorr. Now we can support Schnorr signature on ICP mainnet, which basically means you instead of exchanging, say you want to swap assets, runes or ordinals on Bitcoin, you don't have to do that on the mainnet of Bitcoin anymore. You can just do that on the smart contract running on ICP, and on ICP there is a zero transaction cost. There's no gas fee. There's no gas fee because we never believe the whole gas fee model of Ethereum. We go the opposite way. And also finality speed is 1 second. 1 second. So there's, the performance of doing all these things on ICP eventually with the assets settled on the BTC is equivalent to the traditional Web2 experiences for your users. And a couple of, what I'm bullish about, a couple of very experienced developer studios, they have already seen all this and using our technology to build interesting applications such as Omnity. Omnity, previously by the team from Octopus Network. They are building this cross-chain light client in the Canister smart contract running 100% on ICP. They just issued a Hope You Get Rich runes a few days ago, so you can now buy that on OKX wallet as well as Helix, one of the leading DEX on ICP ecosystem. Another one is Bionic. Bionic created by Bob Bodley, one of the major major influencers in the Bitcoin ecosystem. They create this NFT marketplace that is the fastest marketplace for you to buy ordinals using the CKBTC developed by Divinity Foundation. And also there is, I don't know if Philly is in the room, another team is building the Bitcoin OS. Basically, they want to create a wallet, a smart contract wallet running on ICP that can work with all the assets on Bitcoin. So there's a whole new world that we have unlocked for the developers in terms of how to build applications for the Bitcoin layer 2. And we have a $200 million grant that we're happy to give to developers and support you guys.
Cool. So do we have any open discussion, open Q&A session with our audience?
Yep. Because of the time limits, maybe we can open for one question. Is anyone have any question?
So any question for our, yeah, please.
Roadmap, sort of, where we are now and what's the velocity?
Yeah, thank you, John. Right, Jonathan. Thank you for this question. Famously or infamously, we have this 20-year roadmap for Internet Computer Protocol that was written in January 2021. So it has been widely ridiculed and laughed at by a lot of friends. But it's if you really read that, it's a wonderful piece of manifesto. It's a wonderful and audacious manifesto at that about how to change the world. So to Jonathan's question, thank you. We're actually tracking along this roadmap fairly well. If you look at what the Divinity Foundation, our R&D colleagues, we have accomplished and released in the last 3 years, we are tracking along this roadmap, maybe with certain sort of moving the timetable a little bit, but it's tracking along very well. For example, we released the HTTP outcall feature about 1.5 years ago. So on any smart contract on ICP, you can fetch data from any Web2 websites just as a normal good old internet. You don't need to have another Oracle. So the whole Oracle thing it's not necessary for ICP. And also just a year ago, we released this BTC and ICP direct integration so that you can use a smart contract on the Bitcoin. And a few weeks from now, we're gonna do the same for Ethereum. We're going to be able to be compatible to ERC20 and very soon ERC 720 standards, which means we're going to finally have stablecoin for ICP. So that's going to be a good news for all the DeFi developers, including now we have DeFi on the Bitcoin, so good news for all of us for ICP. And also just a few weeks ago, we finally, it's good to be late than never, we finally able to support Rosetta API. For any project to issue tokens on a central exchange, you need to have that Rosetta API integration. Finally, we have that, which means all the projects that have issued tokens with the ICP's token standard, now they can go straight to Binance, OK, Bybit, what have you, if you are in for that. So we're tracking along, and also just the next big thing. I know this is a Bitcoin crowd, but we are building large language models on ICP. We are in the process of creating a GPU machine subnet with the goal of eventually running the AI native smart contract on ICP. So that is very exciting for a lot of finally we can have some form of decentralized artificial intelligence, because that is that whole thing is getting a little bit out of control to our taste. So yeah, very, but come to us, we'll talk more. There are a lot of things, and there's, but exciting to think about, what we can, how we can help the internet or rebuild internet, as Chris Dixon said in his book, how we can do this right for internet, not just crypto. Crypto is really a small crowd, but I think the internet has run its course in its current form. And we want to rebuild that in the whole decentralized fashion. Thank you.
All right. Thank you guys for sharing lots of takeaways. I guess we have to wrap up our conversation today. So everybody, let's give a huge applause to our panelists today. Thanks for sharing, and very fruitful. Yeah, okay, thank you guys. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.